Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Apologies for being a little bit delayed. Just so that folks have a situational awareness of where we are. Our board chair is unable to attend due to a professional function. So our vice chair, Krista Flynn, has agreed to preside over the meeting, and we're awaiting her arrival. So apologies, and that's the cause of the delay. As soon as Krista joins, we will begin. We won't take any action on the action items until we've been notified that we have quorum. Kristen Armstrong, am I in order, or is there anything you want to amend?
Nope, you're spot on. We can't start till we have a chair and a quorum. So we'll just hang tight.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Kristen. Thanks. Thanks, everybody, for the grace. Our vice chairwoman will be joining us shortly.
Hey, you guys, my link took me to a Teams meeting. I don't know what happened. Sorry.
So, Madam Vice Chair, you were having a meeting of one. Is that what you're telling us?
I was sitting in a waiting room and it was very lonely.
Well, we're glad that you found us. And do we have quorum now or no? We need one more. If it be the vice chair's prerogative, why don't we, in interest of time, begin with the items that do not require action?
Right.
And so we could, I believe we can we can't call the meeting to order until we have quorum. Is that correct?
No, we can call the meeting to order now that we have a chair or a vice chair, Quentin. Well, we just can't take any action items, so we can't approve the minutes, we can't approve the loan item, but we could run through some of those, like public comment and or the CEO report.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and have the vice chair woman call the meeting in order due to public comment, and then I'll begin the CEO report. And as soon as we have quorum, we will take the action items in case that we lose quorum, if it be the vice chairwoman's prerogative.
You got it. Sounds good. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As you well know, Awadati had a last minute conflict today, so I'll be kicking off the agenda in his absence. I'm not really adept at following the rules. I never have been at following rules, but so I'll ask Quentin or anyone from the staff to feel free to interrupt me if I miss any formal steps in the meeting, please. At this time, we'll call the January 20th, 2024 meeting of the Executive Committee to order. To confirm quorum, we don't have that yet, so we'll wait. We will move on to an opportunity for public comment.
Actually, Ms. Flynn, I think we do have quorum now. I saw Mr. Waddington join. I see Mayor Hopewell just joined the room. So if you'd like, we can go ahead and take care of that now.
Let's do that. Go ahead, Ms. Armstrong, if you want to conduct a roll call.
You got it. Thank you. I'm going to run through the full committee name here. Ms. Artizana? Ms. Baydoun?
Here.
Mr. Caldwell? Mr. Cabina, we know is not here. Ms. Klobas? Ms. Flynn?
Present.
Mayor Hopewell?
Present.
Mr. Lutz? Mr. McLaughlin?
Here.
Dr. McMahon?
Here.
Miss Montgomery Tabron?
Present.
Mayor Neely? Dr. Ono? Dr. Pink?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Here.
Mr. Schultz? Miss Thorson?
Yes.
Mr. Tomzak?
Here.
Mr. Waddington?
Here.
And Dr. Walker Graffia? You do have a quorum.
Great.
Sure.
All right. Are there any communications from the secretary?
None today.
All right. We will now provide an opportunity for public comment. Please keep your public comments to 3 minutes or less. Due to the hybrid nature of this meeting, I will first ask for public comment from anyone who is attending the meeting in person. Is there anyone attending the meeting in person that wishes to provide a public comment?
There's
I'm
no
not-
one in the room.
Thank you. I'm not there, so I can't really see. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone participating remotely that wishes to provide a public comment?
If you're interested in providing a public comment, you can unmute your microphone. If you're on virtually, you can raise your hand. And I will go in the order of those that either have their hand raised or unmuted at this point.
None. If they're hearing none, sounds like we will have a quick meeting. Due to the hybrid nature of this meeting and to ensure the accuracy for the meeting minutes, please identify yourself before offering a motion. We would like to see the attached minutes from the November 14th, 2023 meeting that were attached. Are there any edits or changes that need to be made?
Madam Chair, Mayor Hopewell, I move approval.
Thank you. Do we have support?
Support McLaughlin.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mayor Hopewell and support by Mr. McLaughlin to approve the minutes. Are there any questions or additional discussion? Otherwise, we will ask Ms. Armstrong to conduct a roll call.
Thank you. Miss Baydoun?
Support.
I see Miss Klobas has joined. Miss Klobas, do you support the motion for the minutes?
I do. Sorry, I had a challenge with the Zoom link.
No
Thank you.
problem. Thank you. Miss Flynn?
Support, yes.
Mayor Hopewell?
Support.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Dr. McMahon?
Yes.
Miss Montgomery Tabron?
Yes.
Dr. Pink?
Yes.
Mr. Rich,
Support.
Ms. Thorson,
Yes.
Mr. Tomzak,
Yes.
and Mr. Waddington.
Yes.
Thank you, and that motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to the CEO report, so I will turn the floor over to Quentin.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. If it be okay with you, your prerogative, since we have quorum, can we go ahead and maybe flip the CEO report and the audit and governance subcommittee, since that's an action item, to ensure that gets approved, if that's okay with you, ma'am?
Absolutely. You are throwing me for a loop here. Let me find this. Our first action item we will have is the amendment. Is that right?
That's right, yep.
Okay.
So audit and governance subcommittee report out, and I think Mr. Rich is taking care of that today for you.
Excellent. Yes. So Mr. Lutz was not available, so I will hand it over to Mr. Rich, please.
Yep, thanks. Real brief. We had an audit committee a few weeks back. Mr. Lutz and I were able to attend, and I know that Jill and Kristen have followed up with Gina in the background since she was not able to attend the audit committee. Really all that we need to update the team as we discuss the amended and restated bylaws per the chair's request. And the subcommittee is recommending the adoption of the bylaws as presented today.
Great. And attached were those for the consideration of the executive committee were those that amendment and restated bylaws. The revisions were reviewed by the subcommittee and the subcommittee recommends the approval. So are there any questions of the proposed 7th Amendment and restated bylaws? If none, I will entertain a motion to approve and the amended bylaws.
So moved, Hopewell.
Second, Brian.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mayor Hopewell and a second by a couple of people that I didn't catch. Did you get that, Ms.
Yep,
Armstrong?
I got it. I heard Mr. Rich on the first.
Excellent. All right, to approve, to approve, and if you can take a vote, thank you.
You bet. Ms. Baydoun. Ms. Baydoun?
Support.
Thank you. Ms. Clovis?
Support.
Ms. Flynn?
Support.
Mayor Hopewell?
Yes.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. McMahon?
Support.
Ms. Montgomery Tabron?
Support.
Dr. Pink?
Support.
Mr. Rich?
Support.
Ms. Thorson?
Support.
Mr. Tomzak?
Support.
And Mr. Waddington?
Support.
Thank you. That motion also passes.
Great, thank you. And I think that's the only other action item on there. So if we want to hand it back to you, Quentin.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Appreciate the willingness to just be flexible. Wanted to make sure that we just got our action items voted out. I wanted to provide an update, but also please don't hesitate to interrupt if there are questions. First of all, to those that I haven't had the privilege of saying Happy New Year, although we're at the end of January, Happy New Year. Certainly we're getting off to a very full and robust start. So let me begin by maybe giving an update to the 2024 State of the State. The reason I focus on that was last week. It was significant because the governor spoke at length about matters related to economic development, including 3 desired bills that she hoped to pass, which was the reinstitution of the R&D tax credit, the establishment of Hire Michigan, which is a revised version of the older Good Jobs for Michigan, as well as modernizing Renaissance Jones. The reason why this is important, as we've talked about for the last 6 or 7 months, Team Michigan is really executing against a Make It in Michigan economic development strategy focused on people, places, and projects. Attracting and developing people, cultivating and revitalizing places, and competing for and winning projects. And these common sense tools all that have previously been a part of the economic development toolkit in Michigan previously, our efforts by the governor and bipartisan legislature, we hope will get over the finish line to allow us to be even more competitive. And the final thing that the governor mentioned explicitly in her State of the State was the creation of an innovation fund. We also understand, all of us understand, the importance of innovation for Michigan historically, but also for our future. We talked about in the Make It in Michigan, there are a number of industries of particular importance, whether it be defense and aerospace, fintech, insurance tech, mobility innovation, semiconductors, clean energy, agribusiness, outdoor recreation. All these have and seen startups, and we need to make sure that we can grow and nurture and support our startups. And because we have multiple university presidents, we need to make sure that the research coming out of institutions like Fascist State and Kettering, we can, along with the University of Michigan, as well as the tremendous talent coming from Mott Community College, we can make sure that those men and women who are taking the risk, that they can create and launch and sustain those startups in Michigan. So that's the purpose of that innovation fund. Next, I talked about Make It in Michigan. As I alluded to, this was announced last year at the Mackinac Policy Conference. It was announced by the governor and the legislature, focused on people, projects, and places. For people, it's really making sure that we attract and develop folks here in Michigan, because we realize that the number one asset that we have are our friends and neighbors. Secondly, we have to cultivate and revitalize places, because we know people want to go and live in a place that has vitality, and we need to address matters such as childcare, affordable workforce housing, and making sure that we have broadband on both peninsulas. And finally, projects. In order for people to sustain themselves economically, we need to make sure that we have opportunities for greater entrepreneurial and employment growth. And I've talked about some of those key sectors in which we are looking for and have already experienced that growth. With that as a sort of in-state overlay, I wanted to just make sure that we were still aligned on the macroeconomic factors that are necessitating and to which Governor Whitmer was responding to in her State of the State address. First, the fact that we are having a significant clean energy transition. Michigan has been a beneficiary of that. Last year, we had the largest project that was announced at Select USA, Nel Hydrogen, a $400+ million electrolyzer. We've had companies like Luxwall, which is a homegrown Michigan company that is focused on really revolutionizing the windows industry using clean tech, supported by Bill Gates' Breakthrough Ventures, and countless others that are existing in the pipeline. We've talked extensively about the acceleration of battery technology, not only in EV and mobility, but also in energy storage. And because we have representatives, senior executives of our two publicly traded utilities, they can speak about the necessity of making sure that we're competing for opportunities in the energy storage sector, which is vitally important and frequently accompanied by companies that are doing EV battery technological research and development. We talked about the CHIPS Act for making sure that we have semiconductors here to support not only our auto sector, but everything from our cell phones to our laptops to medical devices. And we continue to see those dollars deployed, and you'll be hopefully hearing more about that as we compete in all sectors of that, not only this year, but in the future. But we also understand that there are external economic factor. There is still relative inflation. When I say that, price levels are coming down, but they're not coming down to exactly where they were in certain consumer durable sectors prior to the pandemic. We also still are in a higher interest rate environment, although that is coming down. Obviously, the vice chair can speak ad nauseum about that, given her work in the financial sector. And we also know about geopolitical tensions, and our hearts and thoughts go out to the 3 servicemen and servicewomen who lost their life defending American freedom in Jordan. We live in volatile times. However, having said that, we also know that we are not bereft of hope. And more importantly, we know that Michigan will be there not only to defend through growth of our aerospace and defense sector, but also our work in vehicle mobility. I want to talk a little bit more about the people element of the Make It in Michigan economic development strategy. You're going to see more about UCAN in Michigan. I hope all of you, as we had, the Lions had a tremendous run. I could go on about that, but I won't in the interest of time. But I hope that during the game, if you were watching it in real time and you didn't go out of the room during commercial breaks, the UCAN in Michigan talent campaign ran in all 3 games, the Rams and Bucks victory, and obviously against the 49ers in our championship game. So tremendous compliments and kudos to our Marcom team. This is something that this group has been forceful about from the time, even my interviewing process, but also in subsequent meetings. So I want you to be able to see that. And then the other thing that we're going to do, one of our colleagues, Hillary Doe, who is the nation's first chief growth officer, we really are going to make sure that we can begin implementing and evaluating for policy the recommendations of the Growing Michigan Together Council, of which President Santaono is a voting member. I was a non-voting member to that body, and I think others may have also been on that council as well. And then we have been very grateful and gratified by the work of our talent solutions team at MEDC. One of the things that I think one of the wisest things that has happened and fortuitous for me was to be able to bring Carrie and Brissell Singh aboard as she built out a team that was focused on talent solutions. And that talent action team in both the mobility and semiconductor sectors have done tremendous work, and you'll be hearing more about how that work is being recognized. The Growing Michigan Together Council had a number of recommendations. That council really was focused on understanding the what must be truths to make sure that we have more accessible prosperity here in Michigan. It wasn't a population council because we understand that there are other factors that lead into growing population. But what we do know is when you have a vibrant and thriving, inclusive economy, people from all over the world will come. And that has been Michigan's history, and we believe that will be Michigan's future. As you can see, and we'll make sure that these slides are shared with you, that the key council recommendations was establishment of Michigan as an innovation hub of the Midwest and a scale-up state. That goes back to Governor Whitmer's announcement and State of the State of an innovation fund. We also need to make sure that we're a state of lifelong learning. We obviously know that industries and technologies evolve and change, and we need to make sure that our friends and neighbors are prepared with those skills that are going to allow them to compete whatever the particular new technology might be, whether it is machine learning or generative AI or Industry 4.0. And then we also have to make sure, and this goes back to the place part of our Make It in Michigan economic development strategy, we have to make sure that we have places across both peninsulas that are going to be attractive and have the type of elements that's going to attract not only young talent chronologically, but that young and heart talent. People want to be in a place where that vibrant activity, and I still believe and believe that we can take advantage of the fact that we're going to be relatively insulated despite whatever frustrations that we have with snow or the gray skies. Weather risk remains a significant issue, and I think it will lead to migration. This council's work is not something that is a moment in time that will stop, but it will be ongoing. With that, I want to turn to the Make It in Michigan. Are we going to be able to play an ad? Yes, we will. So this Make It in Michigan is something that we've discussed as this body. It's a $59 million talent and attraction campaign. And actually, I will ask Michelle Grinnell, because her team did a significant amount of the work. I want her to introduce it and give a further overview for the Make It UCAN in Michigan campaign.
Yeah, thanks, Quinn. And I think it's important to note that $59 million budget is for marketing, but also for the work that the Talent Solutions team is doing for talent action teams and some of the scholarship programs. So that is not all marketing dollars. We have $10 million in specific marketing budget for the UCAN in Michigan campaign this year. And I know we've talked about this in the past, but we're really targeting high-skilled, in-demand tech talent in particular in Michigan, in neighboring states and across the U.S. And we are working and collaborating with Hillary Doe in the work that she's doing as we continue to evolve this campaign. And so again, this launched in October, and we were pretty clear at that time that's the starting point, and we're working to evolve and grow that campaign. As Quentin mentioned, the Lions have given us some really exciting opportunities to get that in market. We were also able to take advantage of University of Michigan's run to the national championship to do some advertising in Pasadena and in Houston for those games. So we are trying to be really intentional about finding those national moments in time where everyone's already focused on Michigan, inserting ourselves into those conversations. So I believe this is the spot that ran during those Lions games. We're gonna see if the sound will work. That's where I'm worried.
I can't hear anything.
Okay, we're gonna try to work on the sound. I understand that folks online may not be able to hear it. We're gonna replay it, so hopefully you can hear the sound. Apologies about that.
If we keep one of the microphones on, will they hear it? It always happens.
While we're waiting, can I ask a question?
Of course, please.
With the campaign and the marketing, how does one who is interested plug in? I was looking at the sheet that was up. There was a button that you could click. Are you clicking into jobs that are available in these markets, or what is the contact point once someone is inspired by the ad?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have a whole new website, themichiganlife.org. So when folks are clicking into the ad, we are taking them to that website, and depending on the ad, they may land in different places. We do have some page dedicated to industry and major employers. One of the really exciting parts of our website is the Michigan Career Portal. And so this is where folks can go, they can upload their resume, and we are using AI for that. And we are one of the first in the nation to use AI for this sort of purpose, and help folks really understand, okay, based on the resume you've uploaded, here are careers that you are eligible for. If you were looking to get a career in software engineering, here are some additional skills you would need. And we're seeing really good signups for that. That's one of the things that we're measuring for a short-term impact of the campaign. One of the interesting things is we are getting more traction in that from out of state than in state, and states like California, Texas, exactly where we're trying to target. We're seeing a lot of people upload their information into that career portal. The website also has a live and a play section, and so we see a lot of visits to the we have like a fun little marketing quiz, like where's the best place for Michigan and you. are for you. And so they go to that site. We have regional pages. So if they're interested in Northeast region, Northwest region, we've got redirects to talent initiatives within those regions. We've got some real people with real faces, with real contact information. They can reach out for more information. The idea is to have them be on our site for a little while, kind of figure out an industry or place, and then get them to the subject matter experts. So that website is really kind of our core place to right now. And then from that, they can either find job listings, they can enter that Michigan career portal, they can investigate regional hubs and just kind of explore the state a little bit.
Thank you, Michelle. I just want to make sure that Ms. Lejeune, is that responsive to your question, Ms. Lejeune?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
So I think we're going to try to rewind. Go ahead. Thanks, Amy.
Everybody wants a healthy work life and life where you can dream big in tech or medicine, or where you get to reinvent the automobile, all with easy access to this, and this. This is Michigan. This is where big careers shape the future. Your future. Want to start living your best life? You can in Michigan.
Michelle, do you want to say a few words about the particular actor and his own story? Because I think it is illustrative.
I would love to. So that gentleman is Nando Garza. He lives in Ann Arbor with his family. They moved to Ann Arbor in the last 2 years because they saw it as the type of place they wanted to raise their family. They don't have any family connections here. I believe they moved from Utah. It was actually really fun because I follow him on social after doing this, and the Lions game against the 49ers was the first time he actually saw this ad in the wild, as he called it. And so his whole family was there. They were taking pictures, and just to see his excitement of being able to be the face of this campaign. And he really kind of embodies what we're trying to do, which is looking at Michigan as a place to have a career, raise a family. They picked Michigan just for those reasons, and he's making his career here. So he's been a really great, both just as an actor, he's really great, but we lucked out and he really is walking the walk as well. And I will say this video right now has about 5 million views on our YouTube channel. So we do know that people are out there watching it, and that is certainly part of that is the paid effort that we're putting behind it. But that far surpasses even a lot of our Pure Michigan ads that we have out there.
Thank you, Michelle. I want to just also say that our Chief Operating and Chief Customer Experience Officer, Jen Ellison, is at the State Economic Development Executives Network meeting. And one of our competitor states, Indiana, complimented us on this UCAN and Michigan ad, as well as some of our other competitor states. So people are taking notice. I want to also, again, repeat the website that Michelle mentioned, themichiganlife.org, themichiganlife.org. That is an active website that is connected to the UCAN and Michigan campaign, themichiganlife.org.
And if it's helpful to you, I'm happy to kind of put all of our social handles together, the website. I can also provide some of the metrics we've seen in terms of website videos, the breakdown between students, workforce, in-state, out-of-state. I'm happy to kind of package that all up, and we can send that around as a follow-up just so you all have visibility into that. Yes,
I think that would be very welcome for our executive committee. These are other assets on the UCAN in Michigan, the career in robotics, and also life on the Fresh Coast, which is, we know that 4 out of the 5 Great Lakes prefer Michigan. And so we really have been focused upon that Fresh Coast moniker. Next, this is Life on the Fresh Coast. So this is combining probably a techno party. Brian Rich and the mayor certainly will know more about that than me, but also the fact that you can also have a career in semiconductors from companies like SK Citron, Hemlock Semiconductor, and KLA. So these are other assets that have been used. Next, on the places piece of the Make It in Michigan Economic Development
sorry.
Strategy.
Can I just make, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Just
please.
one comment on the campaign. I know you're going to have lots of copy and different views and pictures, but I would just, I didn't see any African-American people in any of the advertisements. And when you think about a state like Michigan and how we value diversity, I would just be careful not to have all the ads kind of portray or symbolically project a certain demographic and leave out other demographics.
Yeah, I will make sure to include all of the different creative assets because we were very intentional to make sure between the video, between those print ads, and then we also have a whole suite of real person, first person testimonial. So I'm going to include all of that so that you can kind of see the breadth of what Michigan is here in the state. So that's something we are really focused on. But I appreciate the mention of it because we're trying to continue to keep that top of mind and really intentional to highlight the diversity we have in the state and the different lived experiences here.
Great, thank you.
No, and thank you, Ms. Lejeune, for that reminder. And I will just say parenthetically, one of the reasons why, throughout the interview process and subsequently, we've made sure that our, and this is not just put on one team, but our DEI officer has been engaged to make sure that we believe one of Michigan's competitive strengths and why it makes it most attractive is because of that diversity. We'll make sure that all the assets bring that point across, and then we can always obviously be better about that. Any other questions before about that? Yes, Brian.
Michelle, is there a call to action for the committee members around leveraging our social channels to get the campaign out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great to follow them, share them out. One of the things, use the hashtag you can in Michigan and the posts that you're doing. One of the things we're trying to leverage our social channels for is to get more of that first person content, right? The campaign itself is a little bit more polished and produced, but making sure we're getting real Michiganders talking about their experience. So we are working on a series of day in the life videos. So this is finding someone with companies within the state. So we've done one with Domino's, we're working with Steelcase on one. And we are kind of have an open call for folks that want to participate where we follow one person and they're 9 to 5, but then also they're 5 to 9 and what they're doing in Michigan after the fact. And then these are kind of short social snippets that we're sharing on those channels. So yeah, I mean, I think sharing it wherever it makes sense and is organic to you is really great. And then if you hear of stories or you've got ideas of those sorts of companies that we should be highlighting, please send those my way.
And maybe send out the information to all of us. You can include the hashtag you want us to.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Just moving to the places focus area of the Make It in Michigan Economic Development Strategy. We've had 2 successful rounds of the revitalization program RAP that has dispersed well over $100 million across both peninsulas to support community housing and placemaking projects. We do not, obviously, are not the exclusive place for housing. We work very closely with our sister agency, MISHA, but we do a lot of mixed-use development, and I'm grateful to the team that Michelle Wildman and others lead in the hard work on that program. We've continued to support investment in workforce housing. We know that there's a critical need. The governor spoke about that in the State of the State as well. And we continue to prioritize investments in disadvantaged communities. And we continue to leverage resources to provide capital and technical support for small businesses. We realize that small business provide the backbone for place, the main streets, the food districts, those areas that provide vitality in our community. We want to make sure that we continue to emphasize those on both peninsulas. I talked about small business support hubs. We were very encouraged by the work of Amy Rencher, Natalie Chimico, and other members of the Small Business Services and Solutions team. In November of 2023, they worked with our legal staff and others across Team MEDC to disperse our financial team to disperse $73 million in state support for entrepreneurial support hubs across the state. Now, obviously, $73 million is a lot of money, but I think what should be noted is that we received a total of $275 million in funding requests. So again, another program that was more than 3.5 times oversubscribed. 27 organizations across the state received an average grant size of $2.7 million. The state law requires 20% of the businesses served be person of color, owned or minority owned. An average of over 50% were minority owned as part of the selected applicants. So I'm grateful to the thoughtfulness of our small business services team to make sure that that aspect of our values were recognized. And grantees were made in each of the 10 prosperity regions by which we consider work here in Michigan. Next, projects. As I said before, you obviously have to attract and develop people. You have to have a revitalize and cultivate places that people want to be, but we also have to make sure that they have a way to profitably pursue their entrepreneurial employment aspirations. And so we have to compete for and win projects. I began my presentation talking about the governor's continued support of our efforts by trying to develop, along with bipartisan members of the legislature, advanced more economic development tools. A number of you have been a part of that effort. We're grateful for it. And we have to continue to make sure that we pursue aggressively focus areas that align with where federal funds are supporting. I talked about the CHIPS Act, the Semiconductor Infrastructure Jobs and Training Act. Obviously has been helpful for transportation, clean tech. We can talk about dollars that have been put on the street by the Departments of Commerce and Energy and Defense and clean tech and defense and aerospace, among a number of other sectors. So as I head toward home, around the bend, head toward home, there's an ask of the executive committee. I think one, Michelle will make sure that we provide the materials, the collateral, as well as hashtags so you can amplify the message, not only about UCAN in Michigan, but also our Make It in Michigan, overall Make It in Michigan economic development framework, as well as information and tie in to our Growing Michigan Together council that is led by the nation's first chief growth officer, Hillary Doe, who's a colleague of ours. But one specific ask that I want to make, because I appreciate this board as this executive committee is a working executive committee, and you always ask, well, what can we do? You have a lot of influence across the state. We are, continuing to work to educate our legislative partners to make sure that we get the economic development package that I discussed earlier, the RIN zone modernization, higher Michigan, and the reinstitution of the R&D tax credit, along with the innovation fund, over the finish line. That was articulated. The governor set a vision. We now need legislative action to make sure that comes to fruition. We are gratified by where the legislature seems to be, but please, let's reach out. You know, a lot of you have a lot of influence, a lot of relationships across both chambers, across the aisle. We really want to make sure that you come alongside our external affairs team led by Tupac Hunter, as well as Bree Anderson and others who are working to continue the education process. If you're having meetings or you're having opportunities where you're entertaining legislators and you think it could be appropriate for us to join, to continue to educate and make sure that people understand the holistic work we do, spanning from small business to community revitalization, to business attraction, to business marketing, to Travel Michigan, to arts and culture, to outdoor recreation, to SHPO. For us to tell the holistic story, we will welcome that as we try to also get this economic development bill over the finish line. So that's that. Sorry, I was behind a slide, but that's the slide. I think what's important to note is we are looking to sort of have a toolbox that will put us competitive with our peers. I will just say parenthetically that from an R&D perspective, we are the only Midwest state without an R&D incentive, and one of fewer than a dozen in the US without one. And the state that revolutionized global society twice, not only through mobility innovation, but through the sound of Motown, as well as being an arsenal of democracy, I would think it's robbery for us not to have and continue to have the innovation, not to have an R&D. Similarly, we want to make sure that we can that we can have rent zone modernization. That's incredibly important in many of our communities, as well as the Higher Michigan. And Higher Michigan is so important because we all know that we have to continue to compete for and bring more knowledge sector, more R&D, more headquarter jobs. This tool will make it easier for us to do that. The next slide talks about it. We are always frequently asked, what are our business expansion focus sectors? We obviously, it's impossible to be exhausted. We are a state of agribusiness and tourism and hospitality. But as it relates to the tools that the governor, bipartisan members of the legislature upon which they're working, these are the sectors where they will be really germane. Mobility and automotive manufacturing. You can see some of the names of the company who are anchor companies there. There's also advanced manufacturing, especially in defense and aerospace and advanced materials. Clean energy, I talked about Nel Hydrogen and Luxwell. FSI, Fortescue was a announcement last month was it last month? No, last week, I'm sorry, it feels like last month. Last week at the Michigan Strategic Fund, bringing back, it was a perfect Michigan story, a 601 Paquette in Detroit, bringing that from being mothballed for nearly 30, 40 years, bringing it back to commerce, clean energy opportunity, clean tech opportunity. And so that's the type of holistic, people, places, and projects making a Michigan strategy that we want to execute. I've talked about semiconductors, and you can see some of the companies there, and we have others in the pipeline that we hopefully will be able to announce. And then also, obviously, engineering, design, and development. We continue to we want to make sure that we are a state that not only makes things, grows things, but have the people employed in state who are designing the future, who are bending the curve of possibility, should always be here in Michigan, as they have been historically. The next slide, we've talked about why we are so focused on winning in the knowledge sectors. High wage jobs are possible. It will be easier for us to leverage these anticipated new tools, because currently right now we have two business attraction tools. We have the Michigan Business Development Program grant, which is capped at 10 million. And then we had what was formerly known as SOAR, but the Make It in Michigan Closing Fund. So everything looks like a nail to us because We have a big hammer and a small hammer. Similarly, on the community development side, we have the community revitalization. Each of those, our community revitalization and our business attraction, come from a single line item in the state budget. And there's tremendous pressure because of the efforts of our team and our local and regional partners. Having these tools will allow us to compete for more headquarter and professional service opportunities, like some of the ones that have been announced, whether it be Scout Motors or EcoG or others that are R&D and knowledge sector corporate jobs that could bring more and more folks to Michigan across both peninsulas and on the east and west side of the state. So with that, if I still have folks, I will pause and see if there are any questions, but I thank you for allowing us to give you just an update on some of the activities that we're doing. Any questions for me before I turn it back over to Madam Vice Chair? Hearing none, I think I stunned into silence. I will turn it back over to Madam Vice Chair.
Awesome. Thanks, Quentin. And I personally appreciate the willingness to give us a task, right? Like if we're always asking, what can we do to help? And you can help outline that for us. I think that's really helpful. So thank you for doing that. Okay, that leaves the final report out to me for the Personnel and Compensation Subcommittee. We met on January 11th, as we discussed at our November executive committee meeting. We are at 1 year since Quentin's new contract was authorized, and as such, we will be executing the annual MEDC CEO evaluation process. As we've done in prior years, we have an online survey which will be released on February 1st and will remain open for the full month of February. The survey contains 23 total questions, including a final rating recommendation. Participants of the survey will include this executive committee, the governor's office, representation from MEDC's 10 regions through our regional partners, and Quentin's direct reports. Based on feedback from this committee, we will also be adding the MSF board as survey participants as well. While we want a very high participation rate to make the survey an inclusive and as meaningful as possible, I'm hopeful and encouraging you all so that we have 100% participation from this executive committee. So let's please try and get there. As part of the survey, Quentin's self-evaluation will be included for your reference. And as in prior years, the results of the survey evaluation process will move to the March 19th executive committee meeting closed session for this group's review and discussion. Are there any questions with that process? Okay, hearing none. Before we adjourn, I guess I would just say, is there any other items that the committee would like to discuss? Hearing none. Do you have anything else, Quentin?
No, I don't, besides just thanking the executive committee for their continued participation, and thank you for chairing this meeting in the chair's absence.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for your time today. Our next scheduled meeting is March 19th at 10 a.m. in Detroit. A virtual option will be available for those who are unable to join in person. Additional details and materials will be provided in advance as usual. So we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.